This Shabbat, the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av, has a name. It's called Shabbat Hazdan, the Shabbat of Vision. In this period of grief and mourning, as we contemplate the fact that we've lost our temple, leading up to the day of Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar year, when we remember the destruction of the temple, the Shabbat that precedes it, we read from the prophecy of Isaiah, who talks to our people so many years ago. He tells the Jewish people that the temple is broken even before the Romans arrived to destroy it. It was broken because we didn't behave like a people who had a temple. We did not care for one another sufficiently. There was senseless hatred. There was an underlying culture of lack of concern and care for the downtrodden, for the orphan, for the widow, and for those who were in need. When we behave in a way that we've lost our soul, as it should be expressed with love and dedication and care for Hashem and for each other, the temple already was trembling, was crumbling at its foundation. The Romans came to destroy something that wasn't actually the presence of the temple as God intended it to be. So we read these words, the vision of Isaiah, who foretold the destruction. We read the words that make us shudder, that we sense the sadness of loss, that we do not have the presence of this beautiful temple amidst Yerushalayim. But there's another side to the Shabbat. Shabbat comes amidst the period of mourning, the last 9 days, a time in which we do not eat meat, we do not drink wine, because we are diminishing our sense of pleasure and enjoyment and celebration at this time. But when Shabbat comes, it supplants it. Shabbat stands higher. Shabbat is so powerful that it moves away from loss and grief and mourning. There's a glimpse on Shabbat of a world of harmony, of tranquility, of sanctity, a world in which we do care, we do hold on to one another, a world that is perfected, the world that will be when Mashiach comes. And so Shabbat is able to transcend the days of mourning. This year, even more so. Not only does it transcend the grief and the mourning, we would be fasting on Tisha B'Av, which falls on Shabbat, yet Shabbat pushes it away to a day later. This is a day, Shabbat, that transcends the vision of grief. Shabbat is a vision of hope, of optimism, of commitment to the future, of recognition that we can rise higher and not be defined by the anguish and the horrors of the past. So this Shabbat, we call it the Shabbat of Vision because it's a vision of destruction. It's also a Shabbat in which, even more so than any other Shabbat, we sense the vision of hope, the supplanting of grief and mourning with the joy and the sanctity of Shabbat. And Yerushalayim contains the space where the temple once stood. Our sages tell us that Kedushata, its holiness, in a Zazamim Koma, does never ever get removed from its place. Even today, when the temple is not standing, the space and the place is holy. It's the external that was destroyed. The inner core remains wholesome and beautiful. And that's a message to each and every one of us. We are all temples of God. We are all sanctuaries in miniature. We are a place where God's presence can be found. And when there is loss, and when there is destruction, and when there is grief, we mourn and we grieve the elements of our lives that fall apart. It's the external. It's the outer crust. It's the outside. But the inner core remains pure and remains holy, even when things are not looking so perfect. We need to know that, so that when we rebuild our own lives, when we're able to emerge from our own pain and suffering and events that seem to make our lives intolerably difficult, when we go through pain, we have to always remember the sanctity, the inner holiness remains there forever. The inner core is incorruptible. We want to rebuild and redevelop and re-emerge. And please God, with the coming of Mashiach, allow the sanctity of Hashem to return, not only in its residual presence of what once was, but with the presence of the Beit HaMikdash rebuilt in Yerushalayim, our homes, our lives restored, our life and our world congruent with sanctity, harmony, and peace. Have a beautiful Shabbat Chazon, a Shabbat of Vision.